Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're giving your experimental design tool belt a massive, high-level upgrade, mastering the adapted alternating treatments design for the BCBA exam. If you've been studying, you already know that Domain D, experimental design, is notorious for being one of the absolute most grueling sections. It's the section that literally demands you to think not just like a clinician, but like a rigorous scientist. Today, we're targeting a very specific, incredibly powerful tool within that domain, the adapted alternating treatments design. If you're prepping to sit for the exam, this is an absolutely crucial concept to lock down. It's not just about memorizing definitions, right? It's about really understanding the mechanics behind the strategy. So let's just get right into it and sharpen those clinical and analytical skills so you can walk into test day with total confidence.
So you might be wondering, how does this actually deviate from a standard multi-element design? Well, this right here is exactly where candidates constantly stumble on the exam. It's easily one of the most common Domain D pitfalls. And why? Because test takers just naturally blur the lines between these two concepts. I mean, in both designs, you're rapidly alternating something, right? So the brain kind of just lumps them together. But mechanically, they're totally different beasts. A standard multi-element design typically compares different interventions on the exact same behavior to see which works best. But the adaptive version, it flips the script in a very specific way. In this explainer, we're going to unlock the exact structural differences so you never second-guess this methodology when the pressure's on.
Okay, let's really dive into this. To truly understand the deviation, we have to look at the underlying architectural setup of the design itself. The core structure involves mapping specific teaching methods to distinct instructional sets. So we're comparing method A applied to set 1 against method B applied to set 2. Imagine you're teaching a client a new list of sight words. Instead of throwing all the words into one big puzzle, you divide them up. You decide to use method A, let's say traditional flashcards, exclusively for set 1. Then you use method B, maybe a highly interactive tablet app, exclusively for set 2. This side-by-side comparison, where a distinct teaching strategy is permanently married to a specific instructional set, is the absolute foundation of the adapted alternating treatments design. It's highly targeted. You aren't mixing up the methods on the same words. You're keeping the lanes completely separate to see which vehicle drives faster.
And that perfectly illustrates our next vital requirement. The sets have to be different but equivalent. Basically, they need to be topographically different members of the same response class, like spelling words or history facts. For the exam, you need to be deeply familiar with the precise clinical terminology required to make this work. All items across your sets must be topographically different members of the exact same response class. But what does that actually look like in practice? Well, they have to be distinct items, but they must demand the exact same level of effort. If set 1 asks the learner to spell cat and dog, but set 2 asks them to spell pterodactyl and chrysanthemum, your data is completely useless. There's just no way. They have to be perfectly matched in difficulty. If they don't belong to the exact same response class and require the same prerequisite skills, your entire experimental design loses its validity before you even begin.
When you actually put this into practice in the clinic, it translates into a highly logical, seamless workflow. It boils down to 3 main steps. Step 1, select equivalent items. Step 2, apply different methods to set 1 and set 2. And step 3, measure trials to Criterion. First, you carefully curate your equivalent items, exactly like we just discussed with those perfectly balanced spelling words. Step 2, you apply your different instructional methods, strictly assigning method A to set 1 and method B to set 2. And finally, step 3, measuring those trials to Criterion. In real time, this means you're tracking every single attempt until the learner hits that predefined mastery line. It's an incredibly dynamic clinical action plan because you aren't just passively observing behavior over time, you're meticulously counting the exact number of repetitions it takes for the light bulb to go on. This sequence isolates exactly what is happening with our distinct interventions without any muddy data.
So imagine checking your data after a few weeks of running this program. You've been meticulously tracking the progress, and a clear picture emerges. Method A rockets to the mastery line incredibly fast, getting the learner to independence in just 5 days. Meanwhile, method B is seriously lagging behind, taking over 12 days to reach that exact same mastery criteria. What you're watching is a direct head-to-head battle for instructional efficiency. This perfectly illustrates the power of the design. We aren't just looking at whether an intervention works. I mean, eventually both methods got the learner to mastery, right? We're setting up a scientific bake-off to see which educational intervention is simply faster, sharper, and more effective.
The crucial point here is that by plotting these methods side by side, we see exactly which intervention requires fewer trials or less time to hit mastery. That is the ultimate overarching goal of the adapted alternating treatments design. But think about why this actually matters in the real world. Saving time isn't just about making pretty graphs. It has massive implications for your client. It means getting them to independence faster. It means significantly less time spent drilling, which drastically reduces learner frustration and burnout. Utilizing metrics like trials to Criterion gives us the exact undeniable data we need to declare a winner. And when we find that winning method, we can immediately apply it to future learning targets to absolutely maximize our client's success.
But we need to pause here for a very serious warning. The fatal flaw of this design, the trap waiting for you both in the clinic and on the exam, is confounding item inequivalence. If your instructional sets are not perfectly equal in difficulty, your whole experiment completely collapses. And honestly, this happens accidentally in clinical settings all the time. You might group a set of math facts together, completely missing a hidden complexity in set 2 that makes it inherently harder for the learner to process. If that happens, you're no longer measuring the efficiency of your teaching methods, you're just measuring the inherent difficulty of the tasks themselves. The integrity of the entire experiment relies completely on that perfect item equivalence. Which brings us to a really critical, provocative question to test your true readiness. How do test creators mask and equal skill sets in situational questions? This is the ultimate hitting exam trap. Test creators love to bury the inequivalence in a long, dense paragraph about a client's clinical history. They'll make the behavioral intervention sound absolutely perfect on the surface, but hide the subtle fact that the two skill sets require totally different prerequisite skills. For example, Set A might require simple vocal imitation, while Set B secretly requires intraverbal logic. Can you spot that hidden imbalance when the pressure is on and the clock is ticking? Are you ready to catch them trying to trip you up? To make sure you never fall for that trap, here's your actionable game plan. Head over to BxM Education right now. You can click the secure link down in the description to crush today's Level 3 quiz block. Test yourself on those exact situational questions, and be sure to watch the full resolution module while you're there to solidify your understanding. But before you go, ask yourself this. Look at your current caseload. Are you genuinely testing your teaching methods against each other to find the most efficient path? Or are you just assuming your favorite strategy is the best? Mastering the adapted alternating treatments design isn't just about passing a test. It's about proving what actually works for the individuals relying on you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.